Your father's not a general, Lucas. Stop lying." The classroom went silent as Mrs. Whitmore held up his assignment like evidence at a trial. 30 students stared at the black boy standing alone beside his desk, cheeks burning, breath shaking. She tore his paper in half, then again, then again. "Children like you don't come from families like that." In 60 minutes, the truth would break her world in half. Lucas woke up to the soft knock on his bedroom door, the kind his father always used when he didn't want to startle him. "Up and moving, soldier," General Vincent Hughes said from the hallway, his voice warm, steady, familiar. To the world outside their modest Arlington apartment, he looked like any other middle-aged black dad heading to work. To Lucas, he was the bravest man he knew. But today, none of that mattered. Today, Lucas just wanted to make him proud. The apartment wasn't fancy. Clean carpets, worn sofa, family photos, no medals, no uniforms on display. Nothing that screamed 4-star general, security protocol. His father always said the same thing with a shrug. Quiet life, quiet footprint. Lucas never argued, but sometimes he wished people could see what he saw. The discipline, the service, the sacrifices that shaped the man behind the quiet. He walked into the kitchen, still rubbing sleep from his eyes. His mother, Dr. Angela Hughes, was already in her scrubs, pouring coffee before heading to an early surgery. She leaned down and kissed Lucas's forehead. "Big day, baby. Career day," she said, smiling. "Be yourself. That's enough." Lucas sat across from his dad at the small table. No uniform, just jeans and a sweatshirt. He looked almost ordinary. Lucas loved him like this, but part of him wished, just a little, that he could walk into school wearing even one of those ribbons Lucas had seen but wasn't allowed to mention. Not for bragging, just for the truth. "Dad," Lucas said carefully, "can I at least tell them you've been to Korea 6 times?" His father exchanged a glance with Angela, their silent language of parenting. Then he reached across the table and squeezed Lucas's hand. "Some things stay quiet for safety, son. Doesn't matter if other kids brag. You don't need to. You know who you are." Lucas nodded, but inside, a small ache flickered. Why did the truth feel like a secret he wasn't allowed to share? He finished breakfast quickly and went to grab his backpack. On the refrigerator, his crayon drawing hung crooked, a stick-figure soldier with 4 stars on each shoulder. Next to it, the calendar held today's date circled in red. Parent Career Day. He'd been counting down for weeks. "Remember," Angela said as she grabbed her keys, "some people think they know kids just by looking at them." She brushed Lucas's cheek gently. "Don't let their assumptions define your day." He didn't fully understand what she meant, but he nodded anyway. The walk to school was calm, cool air, morning sun. Lucas felt taller somehow, knowing his dad might show up after all. His mom had texted earlier. Briefing ended early. He'll try to make it. Lucas smiled the whole way. At Jefferson Elementary, students rushed through the doors, buzzing about which parents were coming. Lucas held his assignment carefully in his hand. 3 neat paragraphs, written with pride. His truth on paper. He didn't know that the moment he stepped into room 204, his truth would be the very thing torn apart. Literally, piece by piece. And he had no idea that by the time the clock hit 10:30, the truth he'd been told to hide his whole life would walk straight through that classroom door. Jefferson Elementary buzzed with the kind of nervous excitement only Career Day could create. Posters lined the hallways, crayon-colored drawings of parents in uniforms, suits, scrubs, hard hats, kids clustered in small groups, bragging about who was coming and what they did. But when Lucas stepped into room 204, the air shifted in a way he'd felt before. A quiet sorting, an invisible measuring, the kind adults claimed didn't exist, but children always felt. Mrs. Whitmore stood at the front of the classroom, her flag pin gleaming beneath the fluorescent lights. 23 years of experience had shaped her into someone who believed she could read a child's life from a single glance. Which kids came from good families, which ones exaggerated, which ones needed to be guided back into line. Lucas knew she liked order, and she liked predictability, and he didn't fit either box. Students sank into their seats. Tyler Bennett, crisp haircut and brand new sneakers, raised his hand before the day had even begun. "My dad's meeting 3 senators this week," he announced proudly. Mrs. Whitmore's smile stretched wide. "That's wonderful, Tyler. Such important work." 2 desks over, Sophia Wilson lifted her hand hesitantly. "My mom works in the Capitol, too. She cleans the offices after they leave." "That's nice, dear." Mrs. Whitmore nodded, the warmth fading a little. "Everyone contributes in their own way." Lucas watched quietly. He'd seen this pattern before, whose stories got celebrated, whose stories got trimmed down, whose stories never quite landed where they should. At 10 and sharp, Mrs. Whitmore handed out the morning assignment. 3 paragraphs, she said, gliding between desks. What your parents do, why it matters, how it helps our community. Best handwriting. Pencils scratched across paper immediately. Lucas took a breath and began writing. Slow, careful, focused. My dad is a 4-star general in the United States Army. Each sentence felt like the truth he'd been holding inside. He didn't brag about it, he didn't shout it. He simply wrote what his life looked like. Deployments, service, responsibility, leadership. Nothing fancy, nothing exaggerated. Just his father as he knew him. Deshawn leaned over, whispering, "Yo, for real?" Lucas nodded once. "He keeps it quiet." "That's still crazy cool," Deshawn whispered. Lucas smiled, grateful for even one person who didn't look at him sideways. But when Mrs. Whitmore's shadow drifted across his desk, everything tightened. Her eyes scanned his paper. The lines around her mouth hardened. She said nothing, but the silence lingered too long. Then she walked away, jotting something into her planner. Lucas felt his stomach twist. During the bathroom break, he checked his phone. A single message lighting the screen. Dad's flight landed early. He'll be there by 10 Kirk. Keep it a surprise. Lucas's chest filled with a quiet, glowing pride. His father was coming. In uniform, maybe. Or maybe not. But he was coming. He slipped the phone away, still smiling, unaware that a few desks behind him, Mrs. Whitmore had been watching, her suspicion growing with every passing second. She had already decided he was lying. And she had already decided that today, in front of a classroom full of parents, she was going to prove it. The energy in room 204 shifted the moment students returned from break. Parents had started arriving for career day, taking seats along the walls, chatting softly as they waited for presentations to begin. Lucas felt a flutter of nerves. Not fear, but anticipation. His father would walk in any minute. He kept checking the clock, then the door, then the clock again. Mrs. Whitmore called the class to attention. Her voice clipped, controlled. "Before our guests speak, we'll begin by sharing the assignments you wrote this morning. Please read them clearly. This is your chance to make your parents proud." Lucas straightened in his chair. This was it. He'd read his truth, and then, maybe, his father would walk in and confirm everything. Tyler Bennett read first. His paragraphs were filled with names of lawmakers and committee meetings, and Mrs. Whitmore's expression glowed with approval. "Excellent work, Tyler. A fine example of civic engagement." Sophia read next, her voice soft but steady. She spoke about her mother cleaning late into the night to keep the Capitol building spotless. Mrs. Whitmore offered a polite nod. "Thank you, Sophia." Then she moved on quickly. Lucas's heartbeat picked up. He could feel the moment inching closer. "Lucas Hughes," she said finally. "You're next." He stood slowly, held his paper with both hands, tried to keep his voice from shaking. "My dad is a 4-star general in the United States Army." "Stop!" The words snapped across the room like a ruler striking a desk. Parents looked up. Students fell silent. Lucas froze mid-sentence. Mrs. Whitmore rose from her chair. "Lucas, come here, please." He walked toward the front. Every step felt heavier than the last. When he reached her desk, she turned to the class with a rehearsed smile, the kind adults use when they're about to teach a lesson. "Children," she said, "this is what we call embellishment, when a student stretches the truth for attention." Heat climbed Lucas's neck. "Ma'am, I wasn't exaggerating." She raised a hand. "Lucas, I have taught military families for 23 years. I know what generals' children look like." Her eyes swept down to his worn sneakers, his simple backpack, his neatly combed hair. They do not live in modest apartments. They do not sit quietly in public schools without so much as a mention on official records. A few parents shifted uncomfortably. Deshaun whispered under his breath, "This isn't right." Mrs. Whitmore continued, voice sharp. "I checked with the office yesterday. Your father is listed as a government employee, not a general, not even close. So I will ask you again. What does your father actually do?" Lucas felt the burn behind his eyes. "He keeps it quiet for security." "Enough," she snapped. "You will not lie in front of our guests." Students stared. Parents stared. Even the air felt still. "You will sit down," she ordered. "Rewrite this assignment with honest information, and apologize to this class for trying to impress people." Lucas swallowed hard. His hands shook. "My dad didn't raise a liar, ma'am." A stunned silence fell over the room, and somewhere down the hallway, unseen and unknown to everyone, a 4-star general was already on his way. The classroom door clicked shut behind Lucas as he stepped into the hallway, each footstep echoing louder than it should have. He blinked fast, refusing to let tears form. The humiliation sat heavy on his chest, heavier than his backpack, heavier than every whisper floating out from room 204 as career day continued without him. He walked toward the main office, shoulders tight, jaw clenched. His phone buzzed once inside his pocket. He pulled it out quickly. A message from Dad. "Running late. Briefing at the Pentagon went long. Will arrive by 10:30. Stand tall, soldier." Lucas exhaled shakily. 10:30. He just had to hold on until then. Inside the office, Vice Principal Thornton greeted him with a tired sigh. "Sit, Lucas." Lucas sat, feet dangling off the chair. "I received a call from your teacher," Thornton said, flipping open a folder. "She says you disrupted class and refused to correct false statements." Lucas swallowed. "They're not false, sir." Thornton offered a practiced, patronizing smile. "You know, students sometimes exaggerate when they feel insecure." "I wasn't exaggerating. Your father works a government job. He's a 4-star general." Thornton sighed again. "Son, we have paperwork that says otherwise." Lucas clenched his fists. "For security reasons, he doesn't—" "Lucas," Thornton interrupted, voice firm, "I cannot engage in fantasies. You will go back, apologize, rewrite the assignment, and restore order." Lucas opened his mouth, but the words tangled. He dropped his gaze instead. "Back to class," Thornton said, "immediately." When Lucas walked into room 204 again, the air felt heavier than before. Every parent watched him return to his seat. Mrs. Whitmore kept her back straight, chin lifted, as if preparing to win a battle she'd already declared herself the victor of. She called out, loud enough for the visitors to hear, "Lucas, do you have something to say to the class?" He looked up, throat tight. "No, ma'am." "Your apology." His pulse thudded in his ears. "I don't have anything to apologize for." The room gasped. A few parents exchanged looks. A quiet rippled across the classroom. Discomfort mixed with something else, something like unease. Mrs. Whitmore stepped closer, lowering her voice but not the hostility in it. "Lucas, your father is not coming. Let's end this." Lucas's chest burned. "He is coming." "Sweetheart," she said, voice dripping with condescension. "I've met real generals' kids. They don't look like—" She stopped herself too late. A parent flinched. Another frowned. Before anyone could speak, a knock sounded on the door. Sharp, firm. The kind of knock that made the room fall completely silent. Principal Hayes stepped in, slightly breathless. She scanned the room quickly. "Patricia," she said, using Mrs. Whitmore's first name in front of everyone, something no student had ever heard. "A word. Now." Confusion flickered across Mrs. Whitmore's face. "I'm in the middle of—" "Now." The door closed behind them, glass window revealing a tense, low-voiced conversation in the hallway. Students stared. Parents whispered. Lucas stared at the clock. 9:28 a.m. His father would be here soon, and whatever was happening outside that door, he knew it had everything to do with him. Through the narrow window in the classroom door, Lucas watched the adults in the hallway. Principal Hayes stood rigid, her jaw tight. Mrs. Whitmore looked pale, almost gray. Their voices didn't reach the room, but their expressions said enough. Something had shifted. Something big. Parents exchanged hushed murmurs. A few students pointed toward the window before being quietly shushed. Lucas sat frozen, fingers gripping the edge of his desk. His heart thudded like a drum in his ears. Then Deshawn leaned in from 2 seats away. "Bro, something's happening." Lucas didn't respond. He couldn't. He just kept staring at the door, waiting for it to open again. At 9:36 a.m., it did. Principal Hayes stepped inside first, nodding to the parents as if trying to keep order. But her face betrayed her. Flushed, tense, urgent. Mrs. Whitmore followed behind her, stiff and silent. "Class," Hayes said carefully, "we will take a short pause. We have an important visitor on campus and we need to prepare." Before, students could ask questions. A sound echoed from the hallway. Firm footsteps, steady, heavy with command. A few parents stood instinctively, almost on reflex. And then the classroom door opened again. General Vincent Hughes stepped inside. The room fell absolutely silent. Not shocked quiet, reverent quiet. The kind that settles on a crowd when someone unmistakably powerful enters the room. 4 silver stars gleamed under the fluorescent lights. His uniform was immaculate, medals positioned with precision. His posture was straight but relaxed, the confidence of someone trained to stay calm in chaos. Lucas didn't breathe. Not at first. He just stared at his father as the entire world rearranged itself around one single truth. He was here. Hayes cleared her throat softly. "Students, parents, this is—" "No need for introductions," General Hughes said gently. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried. "I'm here for my son." He scanned the room once, eyes steady, composed, until they landed on Lucas. Then everything softened. Lucas rose from his seat without thinking. The room blurred around him. Parents, students, desks, all fading into the background as he walked forward. His father met him halfway. Kneeling so he was eye level with his son, the general placed a steady hand on Lucas's shoulder. "You okay, soldier?" Lucas tried to speak, but his voice cracked. They didn't believe me, Dad." The general's eyes darkened, not with anger but with something sharper, colder, hurt. "I believe you," he said quietly. "Always." He pulled Lucas into his chest. Not a quick hug, a real one, strong, grounding, full of everything Lucas had needed all morning. A few parents wiped at their eyes. Students stared, wide-eyed, silent. Even Mrs. Whitmore didn't move. When the general finally rose, keeping Lucas's hand in his, he looked at the room with a calm that felt more intimidating than shouting. "I understand," he said evenly. "There was some confusion about my son's assignment." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Every adult in the room straightened. Mrs. Whitmore swallowed hard. Parents shifted in their seats, waiting. The atmosphere tightened, not with fear, but with consequence. This was the moment everything changed. General Hughes didn't rush. He stood in front of the room with a steady calm that made every heartbeat in the classroom feel louder. Lucas stayed beside him, fingers curled into his father's sleeve, his breathing still uneven from everything he'd endured. Mrs. Whitmore lingered near her desk, pale and rigid, as if waiting for a verdict she already feared. Parents sat straighter, unsure whether to look at the general or the floor. Even the students, restless moments before, sat perfectly still. "Before we continue with Career Day," the general said softly, "I need to address what happened to my son." Mrs. Whitmore closed her eyes for half a second, a quiet, instinctive flinch. General Hughes didn't attack. He didn't accuse. His voice stayed measured, controlled. "This morning, a 10-year-old boy told the truth about his family. He shared something he was proud of, something he had every right to be proud of. He looked around the room, at every parent, every teacher, every child, and instead of being believed," he continued, "he was humiliated, publicly." Mrs. Whitmore stepped forward, voice trembling. "General Hughes, I made a terrible mistake. I thought—" "You assumed," he said gently, "not out of malice, but out of bias." The word hung in the air like a weight. Lucas tensed, unsure of what would come next, but his father squeezed his shoulder. A small signal, steady and grounding. "Ma'am," the general said, turning fully toward Mrs. Whitmore, "I've led soldiers from every background, every race, every income level. What they wear, where they live, what they look like, none of that tells you who they are. Only their actions do." A few parents nodded silently. The truth in his voice cut through the room without anger, only clarity. "And what actions did my son take?" he asked. "He told the truth. He stood in his integrity. He refused to lie to make an adult comfortable." Lucas felt his throat close a little. Hearing his father say it out loud, it felt like someone had just rebuilt a part of him that had been crushed earlier. Mrs. Whitmore swallowed. "I was wrong," she whispered. "I judged him based on things that had nothing to do with his character. I hurt him. I'm truly sorry." The general didn't respond immediately. He studied her, not with contempt, but with the kind of careful attention that made her shift under the weight of it. Finally, he nodded. "Growth starts with honesty. Thank you for offering that." Then he turned to Lucas. "Son, this is your moment, your choice." The room held its breath. Lucas looked at his teacher. Tears clung to her lashes. She looked small, not because she was weak, but because she finally understood what she'd done. He thought of his father's words, his mother's gentle lessons, Deshawn standing up for him. All the moments today that hurt, and all the moments that healed. "I forgive you," Lucas said softly. "But please, believe kids next time, even when their truth feels big." Mrs. Whitmore nodded, emotion choking her voice. "I will, Lucas. I promise." The general placed a hand over his heart. "That," he said quietly, "is leadership." Then he addressed the room. "Shall we begin the real career day?" Parents exhaled. Students straightened. Lucas finally smiled. Small, proud, steady. And in that moment, the classroom wasn't just different. It was better.